Welcome back. Tonight's show takes us to different worlds in more ways than one.
A very warm welcome, and first up this week, one of South Africa's television staples, celebrating 3 decades of cutting-edge television journalism. Mnet's Carte Blanche turning 30, and in a special show this past week, the show revisiting some of its highlights. Well, one of the people that was there, I think at the very beginning, at the onset, is well-known presenter Derek Watts, who I hope is going to relive some of the moments in front of the camera and also behind the scenes. Welcome, Derek. Always difficult being on the other side when you're being interviewed and not doing the interview.
I get very edgy, yes. But a few gin and tonics beforehand certainly helped.
The power is all mine, Mr. Watts. Take us back 30 years. What was the original intention of the program?
It really was a magazine show. You know, it was started by Bill Fora of Shaka Zulu and beauty contest fame. First show, Jeremy, we had Cocky Tubal, DJ in the studio. We had swimmers, we had Bond girls. It really was just a fun show. And what changed things, which would interest you, is that we started with 60 Minutes, one of the greatest investigative shows in the world. We took the best from America and Australia and pitched them against our little local stories. And people were saying, you know, guys, I think you can do better, although you've got a thousandth of the budget. Yeah. And so we progressed in the 60 Minutes mold, which is asking sensitive questions, telling a story, not just facts and figures. And we started on that road, but I guess the big change was when George Mazarakis joined us, and that was over 20 years ago.
And 30 years ago, it was important to ask difficult and penetrating questions because it was a very different time. P.W. Botha was still in charge of the country, and many, many townships were in flames.
I think that's been one of the facets of the show, that we've seen both sides. And important questions had to be asked on both sides. But as you know, Jeremy, dramatic moments all the way through, right through to where we are now.
How did you get involved?
Interesting story, because Bill Fora gave me a call and said, would you like to present this show? Mnet's only 2 years old. I'm already broadcasting on Top Sport to quite a few million people. I go for an interview with Koos and you know, the rest of the team. And they virtually offered me the job. And then as I'm walking out, Bill says, Derek, can you send me a tape of what you do? So I said, but, you know, Bill, I'm live on Top Sport. You can watch me for 8 hours. Oh, okay, now I'll do that. I think, yeah, I'd seen him around SABC. I'd seen him at the airport in Cape Town. I just think he looked at me and said, he'll do.
Yeah. Or maybe they had the wrong guy completely. They were looking for somebody completely different.
Could have been looking for Jeremy Maggs.
All those years ago. Explain to us how the show each week is constructed. And if I'm not mistaken, it's very much driven by expert producers. Am I right?
Expert producers, hardcore producers, most of them women, all freelancers, work from home, most of them. Camera crews also freelance, and that's one of the, I think, success elements of Carte Blanche, is there's no safety zone, you know, no comfort zone. So what do? We meet on a Monday and go around the table with story ideas. Once an idea is accepted, it'll go to that producer with a contract for he or she, mainly she, to produce it. And then it goes through 2 days of shooting in the field. That's all we've got the budget for. And of course, 2 or 3 days of editing, maybe 2 or 3 viewings. Then we do the final voiceover, probably Saturday morning, Sunday on air if no problems. Of course, Jeremy, as you'll know, lawyers have the final say. We'll push everything to the limit, and they will see if it passes the legal test. But they really are very brave in what they let through.
And the role that the presenters play? I mean, are you involved? Are you immersed in the editorial side yourselves?
Good question. On the shoot, it's very much you and the presenter, as I'm sure you're used to. And it's a sort of merging of ideas. Say, okay, we've got to do a link, what should we say? And you'll get together. Sometimes you just, you know, especially sometimes the producer isn't there. You know, in Rush, when I was there with Mark Shuttleworth, was 2 weeks without a producer. When I was on the trains recently in the Cape, I was just myself and a cameraman. So then you can do things on the spot. But basically you work together with the producer. And remember, they've got the contract. So you can't really override them, but it is teamwork. And
why, Derek, do you think a program has sustained for such a long time? I mean, 30 years is a huge accomplishment in television anywhere in the world, where so much these days is short-term. People, I guess, have a shortened attention span, yet this keeps rolling on Sunday after Sunday.
Some of it's just good fortune. I think it was a good time spot, 7 on a Sunday. I think the name played a big role because, the name was a result of a competition, little guy from the Cape won it. But Carte Blanche, anything goes in French. Although when I see somebody who is from France, they'll say, what do you do? I say, I'm a journalist. Yeah, what's the name of the show? I say, Carte Blanche. They say, no, but I say it's French. And they say, oh no, Carte Blanche. No,
Yes.
but I think the name anything goes means that we can do anything, and we have over the years.
I challenge you one Sunday to actually introduce the program in that terrible French accent.
It
Derek,
was
all
bad, wasn't it?
journalists have memorable stories to tell. You've referenced Mark Shuttleworth, and I'm reaching back into my memory of the program. Mount Everest, you were part of that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was quite
Didn't
controversial.
get to the top, but it was controversial, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Cathy O'Dowd had climbed, the first woman from Africa to climb. Bruce Herod had died on the way, and they were blamed to some extent for his death because they said, they'd taken all the oxygen. So we were at a meeting at Carte Blanche, and George Mazarakis said, we've got an exclusive when they come back. I said, well, why don't we go there? That afternoon, I was on a flight to Kathmandu.
Such is journalism,
Yeah, and we'd done the story, we'd done the interview because they'd come off the mountain. Then Di Lucas, as always, wants to go another step, and she
was one of the producers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she got the military to fly us to base camp, which they don't usually do for non-military people, at quite a budget. Budgets were good in those days. And it was amazing, Jeremy. I'll tell you why, because it was the end of the climbing season. There was nothing to show it was base camp, not a tent peg, not a sign. Then the helicopter took off, and to stand there in a thin tracksuit with that towering mountain above you and just the odd snowfall, it was just incredible. And funny enough, Sean Wisedale, the cameraman, said, I'm going to come back and climb this hill, he called it, very arrogantly. And he did come back and climb that hill.
And he's
all
done
the six others.
all the 6 others as well.
Yeah.
Is that the most memorable story, or are there others that, that you pull out of the file?
Jeremy,
quickly?
yeah. I mean, on the USS George Washington aircraft carrier during the Gulf War, sitting in the control room with all the commanders as their pilots flew in and onto the deck at night, you can hear them thudding down on the deck. You've got a guy below who's got to change the tension on the ropes for each jet. It's the most tense situation I've been in because they'd just lost a guy 2 weeks before who'd gone off the side of the deck. Exacting stuff. Being in Cameroon, looking for primate hunters and being stranded there for the night without a sleeping bag, that was interesting.
There's got to be a book in there at some point, Derek Watts, but don't tell us if you're writing it or not. One of the staples of this program, I think, has been doorstepping villains. Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes a certain degree of courage to do that. Do you enjoy doing that?
I come from a long line of distinguished cowards. Yeah. So I get nervous.
Yeah. But often you've got the height over the villain, though.
Yeah, but it's more of a target. Devi just sneaks in there under the radar. But it's a military operation because if your sound doesn't work, if your camera doesn't work, you've lost it. And we've had a few great busts or confrontations. We've had some which have been hilariously bad. One was with Rogue Motors in Pinetown, who'd been producing dodgy 4x4s. And I came into the workshop perfectly. He was bent over his Rogue 4x4. I was there a little bit backward, like be too much in front. I mean, you've got the greying sausage dog on a stick for sound. And, this is your moment. You got those few seconds. And he looked up and he said, Derek Watts, how are you, my mate?
Not the way the script was supposed to go.
Mabel, get some tea, Derek Watts. No, that was a bad one. So, we depend on that moment, and it didn't happen.
So just a final one. How does a program like this in the age of social media survive another 30 years? And are you going to be around?
Well, I've told them, Jeremy, sadly, another 30 years and I'm out of there.
Yeah. As it should be.
That? Yeah. Look, social media, good and bad, isn't it? Great that we feed off it for our show, we promote on it, and we even get stories out of social media. But in the long term, as you say, people are getting their news off their phones. It's going to probably extend even beyond then. We got fake news, of course. I mean, many big news agencies, CNN, Sky, also take their material off phones, off social media. But they've got to actually go through a process before they put them on air. So a lot of people are saying, why do I have to wait for that? Let me look right away. Paris bombing, let me look now. So, media is going to change, Jeremy. You know more than I do that it's on that parabola. of change. And who knows, 10 years from now, where will we be?
Who knows? Derek Watts, thanks for popping in. Don't forget to take the makeup off. Eh? If you want, it's entirely up to you.
Great, True. Thanks. So good
Derek
to
Watts,
see you again.
30 years on Carte Blanche. Coming up on the programme, we're going to take a look at the South African Revenue Service's latest advertising campaign. It hopes to encourage South Africans to file their tax returns without breaking a sweat.